The night the storm rolled in was supposed to be one of protection, not betrayal. Thunder cracked across the hills, and rain lashed down like nature itself was in rage. But inside my ranch house the lights burned steady, the generators humming, and the radio crackled with urgent pleas. A neighbor's boy had fallen from a roof during last-minute storm prep. A broken leg bleeding bad. The paramedics couldn't make it through the flooded road, and the only chance was the rescue chopper I had arranged through the county. My field was clear. The landing lights set, the beacon pulsing through sheets of rain. I thought I had prepared for everything. I was wrong. When the helicopter's blades began slicing through the sky, a strange sight unfolded at the edge of my property. A convoy of black SUVs rolled in, their lights flashing not in official tones, but in cheap, mismatched strobes. Men spilled out wearing uniforms that looked close enough to law enforcement to fool anyone at first glance, badges glinting under the floodlights. Radios clipped to their shoulders, pistols holstered. And at the front, umbrellas snapping in the wind, was Karen. Her round face glowed with smugness, her finger stabbing toward the helicopter as she shouted over the roar of the blades. "This is unauthorized air traffic over HOA land. Block it. Don't let them land." For a moment, disbelief rooted me where I stood. The boy was writhing in pain on a stretcher, his mother clutching his hand, tears cutting through the rain on her face. And Karen was treating this as another chance to flex her false power. I charged toward her, fury boiling inside me, and shouted, "This is a rescue mission. That chopper is cleared by the county. Get out of the way." But Karen only laughed, her voice shrill and triumphant. "We make the rules here, not you. This land belongs to the HOA, and you can't just let anyone drop in from the sky. We'll fine you for this and seize the property if you resist." Her fake officers moved in, forming a wall with raised hands, as if they had any right to stop a life-saving mission. I pulled out my phone and dialed 911. My voice clipped with urgency. "This is life or death," I told the dispatcher. "A child's injured. The rescue chopper's being blocked by imposters posing as cops. Send everything you have. And hurry." Even as I spoke, Karen strutted like a general, barking orders at her fake unit, the storm whipping her hair into a frenzy. She had gone too far before. But this was a line that once crossed would never be forgiven. The helicopter circled overhead, the pilot's voice coming through my radio, tense and urgent. "We can't land, sir. Too much obstruction. We need that field clear now, or we'll be forced to divert." My heart hammered in my chest. If they pulled away, the boy might not make it. I looked back at his mother, her face pale, her eyes wide with terror, and I knew I couldn't let Karen's madness decide his fate. I sprinted into the field, waving the pilot down, daring the imposters to stop me. Karen shrieked behind me, calling me a criminal, waving her fake badge in the air as though it carried the weight of law. Then came the twist that split the night wide open. Just as one of her fake cops reached for me, floodlights blazed across the field, brighter and sharper than anything Karen had brought. Engines roared, and armored trucks screeched to a halt. Real voices bellowed commands, their authority impossible to mistake. "SWAT, drop your weapons." On the ground now, the imposters froze, their confidence evaporating as heavily armed officers poured into the field, rifles trained, helmets gleaming under the stormlight. The sound of boots pounding against wet earth drowned out Karen's shrill protests. Karen spun around, her face contorting in confusion. No, they're with me," she screamed. "This is my jurisdiction. This is HOA law. But the SWAT commander ignored her, his voice sharp as a blade. You're impersonating law enforcement. That's a felony. Put your hands where I can see them. The imposters wavered, some dropping to their knees immediately, others fumbling in panic. One tried to run, but was tackled within seconds, mud splashing as he hit the ground. Karen, trembling with outrage, refused to comply. She puffed out her chest and shrieked, "You can't arrest me. I am the HOA president." She reached for her fake badge, holding it high as if it could shield her from reality. That was the moment the SWAT commander stepped forward, rain dripping from the brim of his helmet, and ripped the badge from her hand. "This isn't authority," he growled. "This is fraud. And tonight, you put a child's life at risk. That's where this ends." Karen's face twisted from arrogance to terror as the cuffs snapped shut around her wrists. The imposters were hauled off one by one, their cheap uniforms soaked, their fake weapons collected as evidence. The helicopter, now clear, descended with a roar. Its blades churned the rain into a furious spray, but its landing was smooth. Paramedics rushed out, loading the boy into the chopper as his mother sobbed with relief. Within minutes, they lifted off again, fading into the stormy night, carrying him toward the hospital where Real doctors could save him. I stood there drenched, my fists clenched, watching the light disappear into the clouds. For the first time in hours, I breathed. And in the mud beside me, Karen screamed as they dragged her toward the armored van, her words incoherent, drowned by the storm and the truth. The queen of false power had finally been dethroned, not by my hand alone, but by the weight of justice itself. The storm eased only slightly as the armored van's doors clanged shut behind Karen. The sound was final, like the echo of a gavel in a courtroom. And for a moment all I could hear was the rain pattering against the earth. The boy was already in the sky on his way to safety, his mother clinging to the hope the medics carried with them. Around me, neighbors who had run out into the storm stood in stunned silence, their faces pale as they processed what had just happened. They had always known Karen was arrogant, overbearing, and cruel, but this impersonating cops, blocking a rescue was beyond anything they had imagined. The SWAT commander remained behind, his eyes scanning the crowd before landing on me. "You did the right thing calling us," he said, his voice calm but edged with anger at what he'd witnessed. This wasn't just harassment. This was organized fraud and endangerment. If that helicopter had been forced to divert, the boy might not have made it. "She's going away for a long time." He clapped a gloved hand on my shoulder before turning back to coordinate his team. His words didn't soothe me. Not yet. But they lit a fire of certainty in my chest. Justice had arrived, and Karen's empire of intimidation had collapsed in the mud. In the days that followed, the news spread faster than the storm itself. Headlines blared across local stations. HOA president arrested in fake cop sting. Reporters played footage captured on neighbors' phones, Karen screaming in the rain, clutching her phony badge, shrieking about her jurisdiction as SWAT officers pulled her away. Comment sections flooded with outrage and disbelief. How could a woman entrusted with community leadership fall so far? But for those of us who had endured her reign of fear, it wasn't shocking, it was the inevitable end of years of unchecked power. At first, Karen tried to fight back. From jail, she demanded press interviews, claiming she was the victim of a conspiracy, that the real criminals were the neighbors who failed to respect HOA law. But every lie unraveled the moment it was spoken. Investigators uncovered bank records tying her to payments made to the so-called officers she'd hired. They weren't just imposters, they were her pawns. Men she'd recruited with promises of easy cash and a share of fabricated fines. Worse still, her emails revealed she had been planning this for months. Creating a shadow enforcement unit she believed would give her ultimate control over the ranchlands. She had drawn maps, drafted fake ordinances, even mocked up ID cards. It was delusion elevated to criminal enterprise. The twist came when one of her own fake officers, a man named Darren, struck a deal with prosecutors. Standing in court, his voice heavy with shame, he admitted Karen had promised them authority, that she'd claimed the county would eventually back their unit if they just showed enough strength. She said people would fall in line if we looked official. He confessed. She told us the uniforms would scare them into obedience. She made us believe we were the law. His testimony destroyed the last thread of Karen's defense. She wasn't just overzealous, she was the architect of a dangerous fraud. Neighbors who had once cowered now stepped forward to testify too. Mrs. Henderson, frail but steady, described how Karen's so-called officers had pounded on her door weeks before, demanding she pay a fine for her porch light. A single mother recounted being threatened with eviction enforcement if she didn't remove her children's toys from the yard. Each story painted Karen not as a misguided leader, but as a tyrant who weaponized fear. The courtroom swelled with emotion. Some witnesses trembling, others furious, as years of intimidation spilled into the open. Karen sat in the defendant's chair through it all, her arrogance flickering like a dying flame. She still tried to interrupt, still shouted about conspiracies, still claimed her presidency gave her immunity. But the judge, stone-faced, silenced her with a hammering gavel. This court recognizes no such authority, he said coldly. Your title means nothing when you endanger lives. His words landed heavier than any sentence yet delivered. The verdict was inevitable, guilty on multiple counts impersonating law enforcement, fraud, conspiracy, reckless endangerment, and obstruction of emergency services. The judge's sentence was swift and merciless. For your crimes, he declared, and for the danger you inflicted upon your community, you will serve 10 years in state prison. The gavel struck, echoing like thunder, and with it Karen's reign ended in finality. When the news cameras rolled outside, neighbors gathered around me. Some wept, others smiled, but all carried the same look of release. We weren't just free of Karen, we were free of the fear she had built. The HOA disbanded within a week. Its funds frozen. Its bylaws struck down. In its place, we built something new, a cooperative council, where each neighbor had a voice and no one could claim a crown. Meetings were held in the open air on my ranch, under the same oak tree where Karen had once threatened fines, and laughter replaced the silence she had enforced. The boy whose rescue had been blocked survived his surgery and returned home weeks later on crutches, his smile brighter than the spring sun. His mother embraced me in tears, whispering that without my call, he might not be alive. I had no words, only gratitude that justice had moved faster than Karen's cruelty. One evening, as I stood by the landing field where it all began, I hammered a wooden sign into the earth. It bore the words Mrs. Henderson had suggested, "This land protects life, not ego." As the sun sank behind the hills, neighbors gathered to read it. Their nods solemn, their smiles hopeful. We had been tested, torn, nearly broken, but we had risen stronger. And so I ask you, reader, when false power threatens real lives, when arrogance dresses itself in uniforms and lies, should we shrink in fear or should we stand? Call it out, and let the truth land like a rescue chopper in the storm.